and welcome. This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. I'm your host, Mike Church, and I'm joined here by my co-host and lovely wife, Catherine.
Hello, hello.
And we're really excited to bring you the interview. We had a really fun chat with Christine Gilmore from the Kenworthy Performing Arts Center earlier last week. And she's going to share some about Kenworthy, history of it, and especially the recent renovations.
Yes, and upcoming events. We briefly touch on that at the end. It was a really fun interview. We had a great time sitting down with Christine for our first ever podcast interview.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us for episode 3, and let's get into the interview.
At the Kenworthy, I was shoveling snow, and we do it all. I don't hire people for that.
Oh, I appreciate it. But let's get your name on here, so introduce yourself.
Christine Gilmore. I'm the executive director of the Kenworthy Performing Arts Center. See, I can't even do my own name.
It's okay. You can do all the Kenworthy stuff.
Kenworthy Performing Arts Center. It's a long name.
It's a really long name.
So where's the name come from? For people who may not be familiar with the Kenworthy?
That is a great question that I actually may not have the full knowledge behind. So the Kenworthy family opened the Kenworthy Theater in 1926. January 4th, 6:45 p.m. in 1926. I do know the exact date and time. And then that's where they moved their namesake theater. They had a first Kenworthy Theater on 3rd Street
in Moscow.
I didn't know that. And that was there for a couple of years, but then Milburn saw this need for a larger, bigger space and moved the Kenworthy Theater to its current location. So that's where Kenworthy came from. And in 2000, December 27th, 1999, when the nonprofit organization was created, they wanted to create a space that could be indicative of what could happen there. So not just movies, not just the Kenworthy Theater, but a performing arts center. And that's something that's open to everybody, open to all art forms, and something that's part of our mission.
What is the mission?
The mission of the Kenworthy is very long, and so I'm going to abbreviate it for you. But basically, it is to provide and promote high-quality arts experiences for everybody. So, and our goals and strategies align with that, and maintaining the historic aptitude of the theater by restoring it, by doing all of these restoration projects or renovation projects, bringing in things that you wouldn't normally see. Mm-hmm. So it's a bad time for examples because it's Oscar season, but like the French Film Festival, you're not going to see that at the Village Center Cinema. You might see a French film, but not a full festival devoted to it.
Or the Met,
exactly. Met Live or National Theatre Live, Royal Shakespeare Company, those types of things. We try really hard to bring something different and something that's going to appease to anyone and everyone. So you may not like a Marvel movie, but then you'll go and see Little Women that we're showing this weekend. So it's just something for everybody. Yeah.
And so it was owned by the Kenworthys.
It was owned by the Kenworthys.
And it's now it's a nonprofit. Was that the 2000 date or 1999 date?
Yes.
Was that when it became a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Kenworthys owned it all through from it was actually bought in 1925 and opened in 1926. So from 1925 until 1999, the Kenworthys owned it. Throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they leased it I think it was 70s, 80s, and 90s. They leased it out to different companies. So at one point, Carmike Industries leased it from them. It was leased by a private industry for a while. But then in the late 90s, somebody saw a need for this space because it actually closed for about a 9-month period from, I think, May until December in 1999. And there was this need of no, we can't just have this empty storefront, this huge empty theater on Main Street. What are we going to do with this? And we had a really generous offer from the Kenworthys, from Beth Kenworthy. Somebody came in and said, what if we start to rent to buy, rent to own?
Wow.
And she said, how about I just donate it?
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's what developed. So it was donated to along the lines to the Kenworthy Performing Arts Center Inc. But basically part of that role was like you had to create a nonprofit organization in order to accept the donation. That's something that Beth said. It was like, you have to do this. And on that board were business people and people really dedicated. And for the first couple of years, they would literally get down at board meetings and start writing checks to pay the heat because it was not being used very well. It was not very often. It wasn't the space that it is today.
When did you come on board?
I came on board as an admin assistant in April of 2010, but became the executive director in January of 2011. So I've just started my 10th year as executive director.
How did you land that job?
I love this story. So before I even knew what the Kenworthy was, I had a friend who was like, let's go to a show at this theater downtown. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I walked in and I saw the neons on the ceiling, the beautiful floral Art Deco flowers. And I walked in and I said, I want to run this place someday.
Really?
No joke.
That's awesome.
And I was like, how do I get involved? How do I do this? And I would follow their website to see if they were hiring. And I sent in my resume a couple of times, just be like, I would love to work here. And at one point they had an opening. I didn't see it and it closed. And so I didn't get in that. But then the next run around, I started just bugging them basically and landed the admin assistant job. And it was only supposed to be for the summer because the guy who was doing it was taking an internship with Boeing. And so I was only supposed to go in and help during the summer. Well, when I started, the executive director at the time, who'd been there for 10 years, was like, yeah, I'm leaving. So she put her 2 weeks notice in, or her month notice in. And I quickly became the interim because I was the only office person.
Wow.
And I had a meeting with the board of the president at the time, and he was like, so are you going to show up on Monday morning? I was like, yeah, I have a job, don't I? So I increased my hours just a few, and then they hired an executive director. I was there for 6 months. And it just didn't work out. There was a lot of personality conflicts, a lot of idea conflicts of like what he thought the Kenworthy should be and what the board thought the Kenworthy should be. And so he left abruptly, and that's when they were like, okay, Christine, here you go. And the really funny thing is I had a job offer from another organization to be their executive director. And so they matched that offer.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have to move.
And that was almost 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago.
That's awesome.
And it was one of those like meant to be, totally walked in and I was like, reminds me so much of, there's two theaters from where I'm from. One is more of a performing arts center and the other is very much an independent art house theater. And so it was like this mergent of both of them when I walked in. I was like, this is so cool. This could be so much cooler. What can we do? Let's do more. Can we do more?
Well, and you've done more.
Yes.
It certainly seems like it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the renovation? Because obviously you just reopened.
Yes. So we worked with, a couple of years ago, we started our year off with a survey with the board and said, what do you think is the most important thing that we accomplish in the next 5 years? And hands down, it was, we need to renovate the interior. The chairs are uncomfortable. People complain. People can't sit in them. There were a number of patrons who have told me, like, I can only come, but I can only stay for, like, 45 minutes because I can't sit for that long, or people with back problems. Yeah. And they were, we dated them to about the early 80s, and I anticipate that they were used then. So after that, we started developing a committee of being like, let's talk about how we can better renovate, better offer something for theater, and be safe about it. So we had many committee meetings, and then we actually opened up to town halls and did focus groups with about 15 to 20 people at each of those groups, and said, what do you want to see? What do you want? Like, do you think it's needed? And what do you want to see? Because we weren't going to do this giant $200,000 campaign if people didn't think it was needed, because if they didn't think it was going to need it, they weren't going to donate. And so, and honestly, I think that was one of the best things that we did, was to really gain people's excitement about it early on. And so we did these focus groups throughout 2018. And then in 2019, we launched the campaign on February 24th of 2019 and ended the campaign November 24th of 2019, and ended up raising just over $200,000 in that time. Wow. And it was just amazing, the community outpouring of it. We had grant money that came in, and we were just really excited by how much people were like, oh my gosh, can I give you $20? Like, it was those small donations, just like with any campaign. Yeah, we had a couple of really large donations that came in, but at the same time, it's the people who come and sit who say, here's $20, here's $100. I'm sorry, I can't give you more. But it's all of those that came in that really made the campaign successful. So the renovation, when we first started talking about what we were going to do, we had some project creep really easily, because if you look at the theater, there's a lot of space to it. Yeah. If you have the auditorium, you have the backstage, you have the green rooms potentially, you have the marquee, the balcony, the lobby, the outside. And we decided to narrow our focus to just the auditorium, because my goal in all of this was to make an impression, to not fundraise for more than a year, and to make it like, I want people to see the impact of their money within a 18-month period. Wow. Because I feel like campaigns have a tendency to go stagnant if they fundraise for too long. And so I just really wanted somebody to see the impact and see it happening, so then they can trust us that we can continue to do these things as we work on different sections of the building. And so what the project came down to was, in the auditorium, the chairs, the floor, lighting, and carpet. Those were like the main things that we decided to work on. And the floor was really just a project of opportunity, because we took the chairs out. You have to grind down all the bolts. You're going to have these weird pock marks. And so let's just redo the floor. Plus it was this beautiful painted maroon color that the paint started to chip. Yeah. You used to be able to see where the original line of the building was before they expanded 23 feet to the south. Oh. And so, which was cool in the historical sense, but when people would walk on it, at some points there was like half an inch to an inch like dip between the floor and where this big crack was. It was a seam. And so it was like, let's get this cleaned up. Let's work on the safety of that. So anybody who had any type of ambulatory issues, had walking assistance, or anybody in heels, like, you could easily just trip on that. Yeah. And we had these different holes where old chairs used to be. Back before the stage was built out in 2002, there was 12 rows to the front of that. And so once you ripped all those chairs out and ground down the bolts, it left these little holes all over. So it was just time to give the floor a facelift, basically.
Yeah, and the perfect time.
And the perfect time to do it. So we actually ended up not painting it, but sealing it with an epoxy seal that has a stain in it. Oh, and didn't go purple. We wanted to keep it neutral, and went with this like slate gray, and I think it looked really nice. But so opportunity there to just do the floor. I thought it was really important that we did that, and it also added to the sense of safety. Because a lot of people would come in, and we have a wide range of demographic users, but even anybody that had kids that were running. Don't run in the theater, but
that won't necessarily stop it.
That won't stop it, but it will definitely help with that fear of like, don't trip on anything. Yeah. So, and then do the chairs. Yeah. And my goal, and I think the goal especially after going through those town halls and focus groups, was keep the chairs as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Even some people are like, I don't care if you have cup holders. I just want the chairs to be part of the Kenworthy. I don't want the big recliners. They don't want the leather. And honestly, that wouldn't fit in that space. It wouldn't be part of the Kenworthy. And so that was the biggest goal when designing the chair, was trying to figure out what would be the most aesthetically pleasing and close to historically accurate as possible, but also comfortable and ergonomically safe and good for people. And that's when we came up with what we have. We worked with Tara Lou, interior design, to figure out. It wasn't. She helped us guide our decision, which was great, because when you have a board of directors, we all have an opinion. Oh yeah. And everybody kept asking me like, "What do you think? What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh no, I'm way too close to this. This is too much a part of who I am. So I'm taking this out of my hands." And luckily, we came up with there was just a fabulous combination of the Art Deco and the purple and the reds and the pinks that are in the theater, and this wood paneling on the back of the chair that just came together in this beautiful piece.
Where did you have to get the chairs from? Where are those coming?
Those came from, so we worked with a company called Irwin Seating Company. They're based in California and Michigan. I think their offices are based in California, and then their production facilities based in Michigan. But they are a company that work nationwide with all sorts of theaters, especially historic theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really they stood out from the rest, is we looked at a lot of different companies, and they were the ones that were like, here are examples of historic theaters, here's what we do. And even the cast iron edge of the theater chairs, when you walk down the aisle standards, they had a bunch to choose from, and each design had its own like little story and history of like, this is like replication from a 1920s vaudevillian theater. And that's what we were looking for, is something.
Perfect.
The history of the theater is a vaudeville house, and so bringing it all the way back to modern times.
Right. I think you need to add in here, because I didn't know until you told me the layout.
Yes.
The reason behind the layout of the chairs.
Yeah, so there are many stories of why, but the most accurate story that I can find is at one point they were going to put in little bistro tables in the chair and in the spots in the chairs, so people, because we don't have cup holders, we didn't have cup holders at the time, and so this was before my time, so it's history and storytelling and legend, many legends when it comes to the Kenworthy. But so they would have a place to put their sodas, their popcorn, and not so much on the floor. Well, when legend has it that when they took out the chairs and started to measure out for tables, they didn't take into account the slope of the floor. And so you would have a table at an angle, and then when they decided, oh, we have to level this, put a shim in there or something, it was going to add an extraordinary amount of money to each of those, and they just decided, nope, we're not going to do that. And at that time, the chairs had already been out, and people were already started to comment on how much they loved being able to weave in and out, or if you had long legs, you could stretch your legs out, or if you were short, you could make sure nobody tall was sitting in front of you. You could have a private date, whatever. It was just this really unique feature of the building, or of the auditorium. And in fact, when we were working with the chair company, they had a really hard time understanding
this layout.
They were
what
like,
is going on?
The first email I got back from him was, I sent him a PDF of the layout, and he's like, I think something glitched out on the computer. And I was like, nope, that's how it is. And he's like, I don't understand. He came and visited, and he's like, but why wouldn't you put as many chairs as possible in here? I was like, that's what makes the Kenworthy unique. And throughout the whole campaign, that was the number one question asked, is like, are you keeping the spaces? You're keeping the spaces, right? What about the spaces? They don't care about color. They didn't care about cup holders. They cared about the spaces. And that's, something that's so unique. And I'm be interested to see other case studies, if there's any other theater like it in the nation. And with the decline of theater attendance happening, it'd be interesting to see if somebody took that and was like, well, what if it's not like somebody's going to pay money to have separate seats, but it's just something different.
It is.
And so
it shows how memorable it is that people connect those memories with the gaps and didn't want that to change.
Yeah. No,
it's a fixture. I mean, it's such a fixture of downtown Moscow. And that's funny.
I know. The spacing.
The spacing is just the thing.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is the thing. Okay, so upcoming events. What should we hit at the Kenworthy in the next little bit?
Oh, we have so many upcoming events. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, we are showing Little Women, the new one directed by Greta Gerwig, and I've heard just phenomenal. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I've heard it's really good, really family friendly. Some of the really fun events that we have coming up. A new one that we're working with PAC DMS with is called Copycat Cinema. They have taken a 2.5-minute clip from Ghostbusters, and what they're challenging people to do is you create your version of that clip, and you can use whatever props you want. It can be anywhere from 2 to 5 people or 2 to 6 people, however you want to use it. Good for kids, good for adults, and there's actually prize money associated with it. So first place prize is an $800 win. Or grand prize, I should say. The grand prize is $800. First place, I think, is $400. And second place, and then there's also going to be an audience choice award at that night.
So what are the dates?
That's Oscar?
No, that's just Copycat Cinema.
Okay.
So
that's different. When is that?
January 23rd. The submissions are due by the 17th, so the end of this week.
Yeah. So this will probably come out after that, but but that's okay. So they can still attend.
They can still attend. Tickets are only $5 for individuals or $20 for families of 5 or more.
Okay.
You can still attend. Anybody can come. It's going to be family friendly, and then the submissions are actually going to be done live. The judges won't have any pre-watching. They're just going to go and watch it that night. We have a tech person who's watching it, just making sure people are following the rules. And we, the big thing about PAC DMS, the Kenworthy, and actually ICCU, Idaho Central Credit Union, who's the sponsor of this, it's all family friendly. It's really important that this thing is family. Mm-hmm. So if there's anything with any submission that has swear words or anything beyond PG rating, then it won't be submitted. It'll be disqualified. Sure. So and I think it's something fun to kick off the Oscar season at the Kenworthy, because we will be doing Oscar night at the Kenworthy as always, February 9th. Red carpet starts at 4, show starts at 5. It's free, and we're still finalizing a few details, but it's just going to be a great time. People come. Every year there's always somebody who's dressed to the nines, pearls and diamonds and full-length dresses and furs, and there's always people, those college kids who just want to watch the Oscars, and they don't have TV, and so they bring their blankets and they snuggle up in the theater and they watch the Oscars. And honestly, the Oscar night is one of those events that's just like really harkens to what the Kenworthy can offer. It's something for everybody, and we always have a really good time putting it on. It's just a party, and we really enjoy being able to offer it to the community and offer it as, this integral thing that people just have a great time to do.
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
for coming out and tell us about the Kenworthy.
I
We'll
know.
have to do it again.
I know. And we'll have to include some pictures in the post about this, of the chairs.
Yes,
and
and I don't know if you want to know, but we have more to do. We're not even done yet.
That's exciting.
Yes.
So we need to have follow-ups on the next project before it starts.
Well, and that's the thing. We still have carpet to do. I'm working on doing custom-made carpet for the theater.
Wow.
Because we ended up raising more money than we needed. We have some technology upgrades. We're going to get a new screen. We're looking at getting new speakers to really enhance the experience for everybody there. So
wow. And is that all part of that first campaign then? So it's not even.
So that will happen in 2020?
Yes, that's the goal. I'm hoping to have new carpet by spring break. And I'm hoping tomorrow actually have a walkthrough with some techs to do, looking at some sound improvements. We've already upgraded our projector, upgraded the brain to it this week, last week. And we're just at this point of because we are able to raise more money than we anticipated, we can actually accomplish a lot more than what was on our list. And that it was amazing because the MJ Murdoch Trust came in with a $70,000 grant right at the end when we had decided, okay, we've raised enough money to do what we set out to do, chairs and floor and lights. So great. But then they came in with this amazing grant. And then on top of that, Vista came in with a $15,000 grant specifically for the screen. So we have some really great opportunity to do, like I said, custom carpet that fits better with the theater and not just business carpet. We wanted something to really pop and really to match the aesthetic of the new chairs. We want something that matches the aesthetic of the whole theater.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what has been on my list of things to do.
Talk about knocking out of the park to start your campaign all within a year and accomplish way more than you came out. I mean, the next campaign should be a slam dunk.
Well, don't jinx it.
I mean in terms of proving to people that, hey, we can do it. We can take care of it.
I kept saying towards the end of we are ahead of schedule and under budget, because the whole time we had the right contractors doing the right things, we had the right amount of money for everything, and we had people that were so passionate about the project that they were like, oh, we'll just give you a little cut here, or we'll help with you this. And I keep thinking is it Moscow, or did I do a good job, or did the board do a good job?
If you would consider building houses, we could use more people who are under budget and on time. So. That's what we need.
Yeah, that was my goal the whole time was to be reopened by January 4th, so we could mark that historic opening date. So the whole time somebody was like, we need to do this. I'm like, good, get it done right now. Done.
Go.
Off the list, check.
Yep. On to the next.
So I never wanted to be a project manager, but apparently I'm okay at it.
Well, things just fall in your lap.
Yes, it definitely.
Especially with a small organization.
Yes.
Just
Many
gotta
hats.
take care of
You
it.
just got to do it.
You just got to take care of it. So, well, thank you for having me
Christine,
today.
Thank you so much. It was really fun.
It was really fun. I had a
And
good time.
we'll look for an update sometime soon.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.